Every single species on this planet has spent millions of years adapting to Earth. Fish developed gills to breathe underwater, birds evolved hollow bones to fly, and polar bears grew thick fur to survive the Arctic. But then, there is us. We burn in our own sunlight, our spines are falling apart, and we give birth in a process so violent it kills us more than any other mammal on the planet. We are the only species that looks around at the world it evolved in and thought that something is fundamentally off. What if the reason we do not fit on Earth is because we did not originate here? Lizards sit in direct sunlight for hours, while dogs, cats, horses, and elephants spend their entire lives under the same sun and handle it just fine, because their fur, scales, and pigmentation are all perfectly calibrated for our star. Ours is not. We literally had to invent a chemical paste and rub it on ourselves just to go outside safely, meaning we invented sunscreen because our own sun is trying to kill us. Now, look at your back. 80% of humans will experience chronic back pain at some point in their lives. When 4 out of 5 members of a species share the same structural problem, you stop blaming the individual and start looking at the blueprint. Our spines are essentially a horizontal bridge that evolution tried to stand upright, causing the discs between our vertebrae to compress under gravity in ways they were never meant to handle. Other bipedal animals like kangaroos and ostriches do not have this issue because their bodies were built from the ground up for standing, whereas ours were retrofitted badly. Then there is childbirth, a process so rough and dangerous that it stands as the most perilous of any mammal on the planet. Our babies' heads are so big they barely fit through the birth canal, making childbirth one of the leading causes of death for women throughout all of human history before modern medicine. No other species routinely dies trying to deliver healthy offspring. A horse gives birth in about 30 minutes, and the foal stands up and walks within the hour, while a human baby cannot even hold up its own head for months. We show up completely useless, dependent on others for years, and more helpless than any other animal that has ever existed on this planet. And then there are allergies. Your immune system has one job: to protect you. But in humans, this system regularly goes to war against things that are completely harmless, like pollen, peanuts, dust, cat hair, and shellfish. About 30% of the global population has allergies, meaning your own defense system is attacking the air you breathe and the food you eat. Either evolution made a serious mistake, or your body is calibrated for somewhere else entirely. But the strangest part is not physical, it is in your head. No other animal on Earth knows it is going to die. Dogs do not lie awake wondering what happens after death, dolphins do not have existential crises, and elephants do not build religions to cope with the terror of mortality. But we do. All of us. We are the only species walking around with the full awareness that one day we will stop existing, and instead of just dealing with it, we have spent our entire history trying to solve it. We build temples, we write philosophies, and we create entire civilizations organized around the question of what happens when we die. Why would evolution do this to us? What survival advantage does existential dread provide? For most of human history, this awareness has driven people to despair, to madness, and to war, acting like a feature you would find in a species that is out of place, conscious enough to sense something is wrong, but unable to figure out what. And then there is the anomaly that is hardest to explain away. Every species on this planet exists in some kind of balance with its ecosystem, a closed loop where predators keep prey in check, prey keeps plant life in check, and decomposers recycle nutrients back into the soil. Everybody plays their part except us. We clear-cut forests, we poison rivers, and we pump the atmosphere full of gases that heat the planet. We have driven thousands of species to extinction, and we are not even close to slowing down. We are not participating in Earth's ecosystem, we are taking it apart, which is exactly what you would expect from an invasive species dropped onto a planet it was not built for, ignorant of the rules, because the rules were not written for it. So if we really do not belong here, where did we come from? In 1973, Francis Crick, who won the Nobel Prize in 1962 for figuring out how the molecule that carries all of life's instructions actually works, published a paper with chemist Leslie Orgel that should have shaken the scientific world. In that paper, they proposed a wild idea called Directed Panspermia, the theory that life on Earth did not start here, but was deliberately seeded by an intelligent civilization from somewhere else in the galaxy. The man who decoded DNA looked at the story of life on Earth and said he did not think it added up. The evidence backing him up is hard to dismiss. Life showed up on Earth roughly 3.8 billion years ago, while the planet itself is only about 4.5 billion years old. That means complex organic chemistry appeared just 700 million years after Earth formed, which is basically overnight in geological time. The planet was still getting hammered by asteroids, still cooling from a molten hellscape of rock and toxic gas, and somehow life popped up almost the second conditions allowed it, a timing that biologists have always found suspicious. Then there is the Murchison meteorite. In 1969, a rock from space crashed into southeastern Australia, and when scientists cracked it open, they found over 90 different amino acids inside. These building blocks of life are the exact same ones found in every living thing on Earth, proving organic chemistry can ride through space on a rock. We also know life can actually survive out there. Tardigrades, those microscopic little guys that look like eight-legged gummy bears, have been exposed to the vacuum of space, to cosmic radiation, and to temperatures near absolute zero. And they made it. In 2019, an Israeli spacecraft carrying tardigrades crashed on the moon, and scientists think some of them might still be viable up there, just sitting on the lunar surface, waiting. Life does not just exist on Earth, it can hitch a ride between worlds. In 2013, ecologist Dr. Ellis Silver published a book called Humans Are Not From Earth, pulling together all the physiological evidence that we are poorly adapted to this planet, including sunburn, back pain, allergies, dangerous childbirth, and even our circadian rhythm being slightly off from a 24-hour cycle, arguing these were not just quirks of evolution, but signs we came from somewhere else. But here is where it gets complicated, because mainstream biology actually has a pretty good answer for almost all of it, called evolutionary mismatch, and it might be even more interesting than the alien theory. Back pain exists because we only started walking upright about 6 million years ago, and since evolution moves incredibly slowly, our spines have not had enough generations to fully figure out this standing thing, leaving us walking around in a prototype that never got its final update. Sunburn happens because we lost our body hair for thermoregulation when our ancestors moved from forests onto open savannas, needing to cool down while running for hours under the African sun. Sweat works way better on bare skin than through fur, so we traded our protective coat for the ability to outrun literally every other animal on the planet, making sunburn the price we pay. Childbirth is dangerous because our brains got bigger faster than our birth canals could keep up, a phenomenon scientists call the obstetric dilemma, where evolution was trying to make us smarter and keep us upright at the same time, leaving the pelvis caught in a messy, dangerous middle. Even our environmental destruction has a rational explanation, as we evolved in small groups on the savannah where resources felt endless compared to how few of us there were, leaving our brains wired for short-term survival rather than managing an entire planet's ecosystem. We are not alien invaders, but just an animal that got way too powerful, way too fast for its own wiring to handle. So that settles it, right? Well, not quite, because even after all those explanations, there is one thing evolutionary biology still cannot fully account for: the speed. No species in the 4 billion-year history of life on Earth has ever done what we did. Dolphins have been around for roughly 50 million years, and despite being smart with complex social lives and communication, they have never built a single tool. Chimpanzees figured out sticks about 4 million years ago and have not filed a single upgrade since. We went from sharpened rocks to nuclear weapons in about 2 million years, from fire to the International Space Station, from cave paintings to artificial intelligence, and from banging flint together to landing robots on Mars. 200 years ago, we did not have railroads. 125 years ago, airplanes did not exist. 75 years ago, we had not been to space. And 35 years ago, there was no internet. Nothing in the entire history of life on this planet has ever accelerated like that. Nothing even comes close, and scientists still cannot agree on why. Some think it was language, some think it was cooking, which gave us more calories and let our brains get bigger. Some point to a mutation in a gene called FOXP2 that may have unlocked complex speech. And others say it was our ability to teach and stack knowledge across generations, so each one picked up where the last left off. All of those probably played a role, but none of them fully explain the sheer speed of it. Every other intelligent species on Earth took tens of millions of years to develop gradually, while we went from prey animal to running the entire planet in what amounts to a geological blink. Crick could not explain it, Silver could not explain it, and modern evolutionary biology can explain pieces of it, but not the whole thing. The most honest answer science has right now is that we do not fully know, as we have pieces but not the full picture, and that is what keeps the question alive. It is probably not true that we are aliens, as the evolutionary evidence is strong and mismatch theory handles most of the weird stuff about our bodies, meaning we are almost certainly a product of this planet, shaped by the same forces that shaped everything else here. But almost certainly is not definitely. And when real scientists, including one of the founders of modern genetics, look at the evidence and say something here does not quite add up, that is not conspiracy talk. That is just science doing what science does, asking the uncomfortable questions and being honest when the answers do not come out clean. It is the same curiosity that made us look up at the stars in the first place, the same restlessness that made us build rockets and telescopes and send little robots to other planets just to see what is there. Maybe that restlessness is not a flaw, maybe it is a clue. Because if we are from here, then we are the strangest thing this planet has ever produced. A species that burns in its own sunlight, breaks under its own gravity, and cannot stop looking at the sky wondering where it really came from. And if we are not from here, then we have been trying to find our way home for 200,000 years, and we do not even know it.